thanks so much for joining us today for our hospitality and tourism Q&A. We're really excited to be joined by Peter Bates. Peter is the founder and president of Strategic Vision, which is a global marketing and communications agency that works with a broad range of clients in the luxury, lifestyle, travel, hospitality, as well as the event industry space. So it's a real pleasure for us to have Peter join us today. Not only Peter, hi, it's such a pleasure to have you join us today. Last time we saw each other was a few years ago when we were sitting in the garden at the Oberoi Maidens in Delhi, enjoying a cup of tea. And I believe you were visiting there with Nancy Novograd. And anyways, it's been a few years, but it's so lovely to see you again. And thank you so much for your time and for joining us.
That was a good trip. I used to love those trips with Nancy Novograd. We went all over the world for Travel and Leisure magazine. It was a great joy. So it was very nice to see you then. And it's even better to see you now.
Wonderful. Thank you. And take some time to talk to you a little bit more about where you see things sort of, headed for the luxury travel and tourism space, which is really your area of specialty as well. And, given your company's breadth of experience with working some of the top luxury brands, one of the things we wanted to better understand is what are some of the trends that you see emerging in this post-COVID world, and ways in which you've even had to possibly pivot your business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a very strange time. When we got, I was in India, in fact, talking about India, I was in India in January, early February for a client, came back from that and haven't really left the office since, which was a little bit of a surprise to everybody. But we are now beginning to see things open up a bit. And I think we all know that people are going to be going for drive markets. They're going to take it in baby steps. So I see drive markets within the US and in Europe and everywhere else being very successful this year. And that's what I think everybody should be really concentrating on. I think it'll broaden out a little bit as the year goes on, depending on what happens. And that people will start perhaps going to the Caribbean and to Mexico from the US. But I don't think they'll be taking long haul trips this year at all. And so the trend must be to develop really interesting programs for people to stay at home, but they do want to travel, and there is certainly pent-up demand. But it's a very fluid situation because we're seeing spikes in different places all the time. In the United States, 22 states are saying they've got an increased infection. So people are being very cautious. And some of the things they're saying is, I don't really want to fly anywhere. I'd like to drive. If I do fly anywhere, it has to be direct service. I don't want to stop anywhere. And so we're beginning to see a few patterns emerge, but we have to be flexible because flexibility is going to be the key to this year, because people can book things and then something happens and they're going to cancel it. I talked to a very senior travel advisor yesterday who had 2 bookings, lovely little bookings down in the Carolinas, but because of a spike down there, the client cancelled. So there is a lot of cautiousness in the environment. And I think from a point of view of being a hotelier or being a travel advisor, you have to understand that it's got to be done in that way. But having said all that, people are looking for private villas, they are looking for private homes to rent, and they do want to get away. They've had, I think everybody has found the last 3 months different and difficult in different ways. Homeschool teaching has become a big thing for everybody, looking after your family, some things that people took for granted and that they had never had to do perhaps as much of before. That's really come to the fore. And I think that's given people a little bit of food for thought, but now they need to get out and relax a little bit.
Excellent. You're absolutely right. I think I'm envisioning vacations on a daily basis. So it's probably the only thing keeping me sane.
Dreaming is part of the vacation. Dreaming and planning is part of the exercise.
Great. Wonderful. Peter, what do you think this means for possible preferences for the luxury traveler?
if they do travel, what we're hearing is that when they get to the hotel or resort they're staying at, they tend not to worry about social distancing. They tend not to worry about masks too much. They tend to want the services they wanted before. They want to go back to normal. So whereas some hotel companies may have said, we're going to reduce the amount of room service, we're going to reduce the amount of room servicing, we're not going to put gowns in the rooms, things like that. That's not what the client wants. The client wants it as near as possible to what it was before. We've had a lot of experience in the last few weeks of talking to brands around the country who had implemented some great ideas, but they're not necessarily being followed by the public. Social distancing and masks were not the order of the day. So I do think that we have to make everything available to the client, but the client may not wish to accept it all. Right. Having said that, in the luxury space, the hotels are at a great advantage because the hotels and resorts, that is, because clients expect and know they will be clean. They know they will be well cared for. That's what hospitality is about. That's why these hotels are great luxury hotels. And so there isn't the concern there. Some companies have taken it a little bit too far in some ways, I think, producing videos which shows how clean everything is and where the plexiglass is and all that sort of thing. It actually makes the environment look rather sterile. And that is not what a client wants, because the client is expecting to fulfill a dream. And it's all about, we're in the dream business. We're in the guest satisfaction business. And so it's important that we balance these things off and accept that our clients are very interested to know how clean airports are, how clean airplanes are. But in the hotel business, the luxury hotel business, that is, they know it's there. They've always known it's there. So they're not really so concerned about it. Right. It's different in other sectors, like the cruise sector, of course, which is has had an amazingly difficult time. And I look back to my time in the cruise industry and just wonder just how it ended up like this. But now we're seeing with the CDC rules here, there's going to be no ocean cruising before September at the earliest. River cruising will come back earlier, but ocean cruising, it'll be at least September, probably longer. My old company, Cunard, are actually talking about November before the liners come back. And so different parts of our industry are being affected in different ways. This is not of one idea fits all. We have to be very careful to segment everything we say into different areas.
Peter, one of the things I enjoy reading is your newsletter. I always find it's very thoughtfully written and it's inspiring. And one of your recent newsletters talked about the importance of communication for both employers and customers. Yeah. And I wondered if we could spend a bit of time talking about, how employers can really differentiate themselves in this space.
Sure. This is so important because our employees are our biggest factor. We can build beautiful buildings. We can build great resorts, great city center hotels, but if we don't have the right staff, we're not going to make it. Our staff are critical, and they've been through and are going through some very, very difficult times now. And so communication is one of the key things we can do. And whether it's like this on Zoom, whether it's in other forms of communication and e-newsletters and things, but we do need to keep them informed. So many people have lost their jobs in our industry. The numbers are quite frightening if you look on a global basis. When you look at what the WTTC is saying about the loss of employment in our industry, it's absolutely tragic. And so communicating with people, telling them what is happening and what the future might look like is so important. Being frank and honest with them, because we're all in this together. This isn't something that one sector has got or one part of the world has got. We used to be able to go and say, well, okay, we can't get business from that part of the world, we'll go to this part of the world because they'll come to us. Everybody has stopped.
Right.
It has all stopped. So I think we need communication more than ever to build people's spirits up. It is going to get better. It's going to take time. I still say, I go back to fluid. The word fluid is the big word of the year because it is changing all the time. But communication, explaining why, explaining how is very important. And I think some of the CEOs of the major companies over the last few months who've been making videos have been really good. I mean, the Arne Sorensen's one, the big one, amazing. The acting CEO of MGM, an excellent one. There's been some really strong messages on a continual basis. Sebastian Bezin for a call, regular updates, and very frank updates. And I think that's what we need. It's from the heart. You can tell that that's from the heart of these senior executives. And I think that's what will help us all get through this. This is a time that none of us expected, none of us have practiced for. There is no book to follow. So how you work together and how you communicate together is vitally important.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, all these messages that you've also spoken about, speak with an authenticity and a vulnerability that we just haven't seen before, right? And making it obviously very relatable. And, carrying on from that, a lot of your business is obviously focused on the world of content creation. And so we wanted to, take some time to understand from an external marketing perspective, how do we look at content creation in terms of sustaining work culture? Because as much as, the industry is coming back to life, there's still so many roles and work that's going to be done remotely. So, I think for us from an HR perspective, we're really trying to think of how do you continue to sustain and build culture in that type of setting.
This is again, we'll start at the top of any organization and go from there. Radha Arora from Rosewood was on one of the roundtables I hosted recently, and to listen to him and how they are really involving everybody in raising money in charitable ways, letting hotels do their own thing. It's not a corporate program, it's a program across all the hotels. It's allowing people to express themselves, but feel also that they are part of a company. And again, this is all changing. What it was like in April, May is different to what it is now as we approach the 4th of July holiday here in the United States, halfway through June. We've got to start looking perhaps in a slightly different way as we start to build up. But we must, again, with our employees, explain to them the path forward and how that will go. With our clients, it's exactly the same. It's the way we were speaking to our clients, and the way we are speaking to our clients now is slightly different. We were, I think, as an industry, just keeping in touch. Now we're beginning to suggest things, show them how they could do it and why they could do it and how much it might cost to do it. And so I think we're planting seeds now. Those seeds, it may take weeks and weeks and weeks for them to come to fruition. But I think we are beginning to move into yet another phase of this. And providing we can keep the virus under control, and we're not doing a great job in the States of that at the moment, it looks like, from the number of new cases we're getting, then as long as we're fluid and as long as we keep communicating with people, we can change our messaging to start getting to people back to work.
Great. No, absolutely. I think we're all keeping our fingers crossed that we can, move forward from this sooner versus later. Over the last few months, what books or podcasts, what have you enjoyed reading or hearing that our audience may appreciate?
I actually haven't read a lot of books because there is so much reading to do. I find there's publications are coming out all the time. The newspapers are full of stuff. There is so much going on in this country at the moment. You know, we had a global pandemic. We've got a recession. Now we have a racial crisis, a real, very, very serious crisis, which we have to address. There is so much to understand and learn, I think, about how we are going to go forward. We've got an opportunity now, an opportunity like we've never had before. We've skipped the other opportunities. We must not skip this opportunity. And so I found myself completely involved in the news cycle. And the news cycle is so fast moving today, that I've really found a great interest in that. And time you get through the Financial Times from Britain, the Wall Street Journal from here in the States, the trade publications, there is so much happening. And I think the job I have is to make myself as well briefed as possible, so that I can help my clients. So a lot of it has been that. But one of my clients is Travel and Leisure Magazine, and they've just created a new podcast. The second edition has just come out now, and you can get it on iTunes. So that's been very good, because I've started to listen to that. But I must say that I've become a news junkie. Perhaps some would say I already was, but I think there is so much material at the moment and so much good writing that we need to keep following that.
So Peter, you're so well traveled. Obviously, I mean, in your career in hospitality and tourism, once it's safe to travel again, where would you like to go to next?
I have family all over the world. I have 2 sons studying currently at university in Australia, so I'd love to go to Australia. But I can't, and probably won't be able to this year. I don't think those borders will open this year. I have 2 grandchildren in the United Kingdom, so I'd love to go to the United Kingdom, but I can't. There's a quarantine there as well. And I have 1 son working in France. So I've got family all over the place. I'd love to go and see. And so I think our first trip will be probably to somewhere local, like Bermuda, when it opens, just about to open, or to Turks and Caicos, one of my favorite islands.
Right.
And if we're going a little bit further, it'll probably be Europe, probably be the UK or France.
Well, Peter, listen, thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure and so wonderful to see you again.
Nice
and
to see you.
Of course, wish you and your family well, and
Thank you.
with the business as well going forward. So an absolute pleasure, and look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you very much indeed. Look after yourself.